Hi there and welcome to Jill's Quest for Riches. In today's episode we are going to look into which broker platform you should choose as a European citizen. So, why am I making this video? Well, the objective of this channel is to obtain riches, and one of the easiest ways to obtain riches is to have your money make money for you, right? And an easy way to do this is by investing in stocks, bonds, funds, ETFs. Now, the first obstacle you'll be facing when you want to do this investing is to choose the right broker platform on which you will be doing your trading and on which you will be holding your portfolio. And honestly, I believe that a lot of people that realize that they should be investing already get stuck at this first step. So that is why I think it's important to tackle this first. Now, how are we going to tackle this? Well, we're going to compare the platforms that are out there. I'm going to focus on the platforms with which I have experience, so only the ones that I used myself or that I at least investigated and then didn't pick. And I will be focusing on what is important for you, or at least what I think is important for you. When I say you, I mean you, non-US citizen who has 5 to 500 euros of available income each month to invest, who has little to no experience with investing and just want to get started, or maybe like me, you have a little bit of experience in investing, but you should maybe reconsider which platform is best for you. So let's get started. Let's find out which platform makes most sense for you, and if you're lucky, there might even be a free stock in it. So let's go. So let's start out with listing the platforms that we're not going to tackle in this video, and more importantly, why we're not going to tackle them. First up, we have Webull and Robinhood. To my understanding, these are actually quite decent, good, useful platforms with a lot of popularity, but they're only for US citizens, so it doesn't make any sense for me as a European or any other non-US citizen to invest any time in these platforms. Too bad, but hey, that's life. A few other platforms that we're not going to pay too much attention to today are Bolero, Keytrade and Bing Bank. Why is that? Well, their transaction costs are fairly just too high for a starting investor. Their transaction costs start at about 7.5, 7.25 euros per transaction. Now you have to imagine, before you get any returns, you have to buy a stock, hold it and sell it. So at the very least, you're paying that transaction cost twice. So that's why I always double my transaction costs to know how much percentage of my investment is actually going to these fees. But if we double this, then we're ending up at around 15 euros. So 15 euros, that means I need to invest at least 1,500 euros in one go, and then I'm still paying a full percentage of transaction fees. In my honest opinion, this is too much, so I'm not digging into these platforms. And those are even the lowest transaction fees. So for some markets, depending on where you buy or sell, these transaction costs can go up to 40 euros. So times 2, that's 80 euros of transaction costs in one investment. Really doesn't make any sense for starting investors like you and me. And I'm just listing here these 3 platforms because I know them, but definitely if you have other platforms that you're considering, the first thing you should do is check out this transaction cost. And if it's already in the range of 7.5 euros, then just leave it be. This is not a platform on which you should be starting out. There's definitely money to be made on these platforms, but it's not you, the investor, who's making the money, it's the broker. So they're out for this video now. So based on what are we going to compare these platforms? Well, first thing you already heard is transaction costs. And in this video I will be tackling the minimum transaction costs. Why is that? Well, frankly speaking, with the amount that we're investing, like 5 to 500 euros per month, we're always going to be in that lowest category where we have to pay the minimum transaction costs. Usually in most platforms, when you start investing in bigger chunks with bigger amounts, let's say 5,000, 10,000, then you don't pay the minimum fee anymore, but you pay a very low percentage on your volume, which becomes way more interesting. But we're most probably, as a starting investor, not yet at that point. So that's why the minimum transaction cost is what we should be paying attention to. Other fees that we should consider is custody fees. Now, some platforms do charge a fee just because you're a user of their platform. Where you buy or sell anything doesn't matter. So that's also a fee to take into account. Other fees that are very important to pay attention to are foreign exchange costs. Whenever you are making your wage or your salary in euros and you want to buy an American stock listed in dollars, before you can even purchase that stock, you need to exchange euros to dollars. And to do that exchange, you're also paying a fee, and each platform has their own fees. So it's very important to be aware of these fees as well. And again, just like with the transaction cost, usually you pay these fees at least twice. Once when you buy the stock, and also in the long term when you sell the stock. So that's why I'm always counting these fees twice as well when I calculate how much fees I'm paying for a specific investment. Next on the list are which stocks and which ETFs or other funds are available on the platform. Usually I would also be looking into which bonds, but in the current economy, it's just not that interesting to be investing in bonds at all. The interest rates are just way too low. You can also make a distinction based on which type of orders you can do on a platform. Now, these can range from the very simple market order, where you just buy for the market price at that moment, to limit orders, where you say, I only want to buy this stock as long as it's not above this price. So depending on how the market evolves throughout the day, you'll be executing that order or not. And then there's still a range of other orders as well. I think for a starting investor, these two first orders are the most important, but it's always interesting to know what other opportunities are out there on your platform. Certainly for millennials, I think a very important thing to look at is the user experience. How does this app, how does this platform, web or mobile, feel? How easy is it to do what I want to do? How fast do I learn how to use it? And to wrap up, the last thing that we're going to look into for each platform is in which countries they are available. Now, Europe is a very scattered landscape, and some of these platforms are only available in a few countries within Europe, and some of these platforms are even available outside of Europe. So that's why I'm also going to tackle this point. So, first one on the list is Lynx. Now, the transaction costs here differ from exchange to exchange. So for most European exchanges, you will be at €6 per transaction, which is still relatively high, but maybe feasible. Exceptions here are Portugal and Estonia, where they charge a bit more. Switzerland, where they charge €13 per transaction. But then you have US stocks that are only more or less €4 per transaction. London, again, a bit more expensive, €10 per transaction, so that's maybe not worth it anymore. Australia, also around €6. And then Japan, only €4 per transaction. So that's actually quite interesting. When it comes down to custody fees, I was in for a big surprise. I've been using Lynx since 2016, and only whilst preparing this video, I found out that you're actually paying €5 per month in custody fees, which is insane. Now, in their defense, you can deduct your transaction costs from the custody fee. So if you would be investing like in a European stock every single month, you can deduct the €6 of transaction costs from this custody fee. So in practice, you wouldn't be paying any custody fee. But as soon as you're waiting a few months with doing any transactions, you're not buying or selling anything, you're still paying those custody fees. So in one way, it even pushes you a bit to make sure that every month you at least do an investment, because you're paying the cost anyway. Now, if you're really starting out, maybe as a student, you don't even have a few hundreds per month to invest, you're only building up some money and invest just every few months, then this is definitely not the platform you should be working on, because these fees will completely eat away your revenue for the first few years. When you are exchanging money on the Lynx platform, you're paying about $5 for every time you exchange euros to dollars or the other way around, which is actually quite a large amount as well. And it stays at this level for at least the first 1,000 euros. So again, for beginning investors, not the best cost structure for you. In return for these high costs and high fees, you do get a really broad offer of possible stocks, bonds, ETFs and other products that you can invest in. They also offer turbos, if I'm not mistaken. And ever since I've been using the platform in 2016, I only bumped into 1 or 2 ETFs that they were not offering on the platform. So really broad, definitely broader than the other platforms that we will be discussing today. The same goes for the types of orders that you can choose from on this platform. You definitely have the limit, the market, stop and stop limit orders. But apart from that, there's also a few other types of orders that you just don't have on many other platforms. So also in types of orders, a lot of choice. When we talk UX, there's obviously the advantage of having a lot of choices. There's so many order types, so many products that you can choose from, and you also have a lot of information about your stocks and investments available on the platform, both on the mobile platform and even more so on the web platform. So that's in your advantage, it's very empowering, but at the same time, it's also difficult to maintain an overview. There's so much information out there, definitely for a starting investor, it might be too much at once. And to wrap up for Lynx, the amount of countries in which it is available is only 9 European countries, so that's not that much. Next on the list is DEGIRO. Now, DEGIRO is very competitive in terms of transaction costs. We're talking about €2 for any stocks bought or sold on the Brussels or Amsterdam Stock Exchange. And then if we look at other exchanges in Europe, you would be paying more or less €4 of transaction cost, which is still relatively low, with the exception for Hungary, Greece, Czech Republic and Turkey, where you would be paying €10 of transaction costs. So definitely keep in mind on which exchange am I buying or selling this stock, because it has a huge impact on the transaction costs. On the US market, you only pay €0.5 of transaction costs, plus an additional $0.4 per individual stock in your transaction. But it gets more interesting. At DEGIRO, you also have what they call a core list of funds and trackers, and if you buy or sell these, you pay 0 transaction costs. So it's definitely interesting to look into this list and see whether the funds or trackers that you're interested in are actually in there, because if so, then this platform is really interesting for you. There are actually no real custody fees charged on the DEGIRO platform, but you should know that you do pay a negative interest on your cash balance on the platform, which is approximately 0.45%. But for the first €2,500, DEGIRO compensates these costs. And more importantly, if you always put money every month on the platform to immediately buy something, then you're actually not really incurring these negative interests, because you will nearly ever have a cash balance on the platform. You will only have a portfolio that you're managing. But still something to keep in mind. When it comes to exchanging currencies on the DEGIRO platform, they actually have quite an interesting feature. On most platforms, actually, when you have euros, you still need to first do an exchange, pay the exchange fee, and then do your purchase in the foreign exchange. But on DEGIRO, they actually have what they call an auto foreign exchange. That means if I only have euros cash on my DEGIRO account and I want to buy an American stock, that I can just create the purchase order immediately, and when it gets executed, DEGIRO will do the foreign exchange for me. So they will exchange the exact amount that is needed from euro to dollar to buy a dollar stock. That's very interesting because it's a little bit less hassle, and the fee that they charge for it is actually quite okay. We're talking about 0.1% on the amount. So that's a very affordable fee. And definitely interesting when you pay in low amounts. They don't have a minimum transaction cost here, so that's really good. If you would, however, want to do the exchange in currency manually, like maybe you just want to invest in the dollar as a currency, not necessarily in a stock, or you think that it's more interesting financially, then you have another setup of transaction costs. So then you would be paying €10 fix plus another 0.02% on the volume. So that's way more expensive for the smaller amount, but it becomes way more interesting when you reach transactions of above €12,500. Then it's actually more interesting to do the exchange manually instead of the auto foreign exchange. But I guess we're not yet at that point, at least I'm not. DEGIRO offers quite a broad range of stocks, I would say most stocks, and quite a lot of ETFs, not all, but quite a lot of them. In terms of the types of orders that you can do, they offer the 4 most important ones. So market and limit orders, but also stop loss and stop limit orders. Then when we look into the user experience of the platform, it's actually still relatively powerful. You can do quite a lot of things and there is a lot of information, but yet it is quite easy to use. It's very intuitive, it's relatively light in terms of how it feels. Like there is a lot of information to be found, but it's not in your face. So UX wise, I think it's also doing a relatively good job. And then when we look at the countries in which DEGIRO is available, Well, there's quite a lot of countries within Europe where you can actually use this platform, so that's a good thing as well.